Welcome to this episode of the Pops and Drops podcast.
What up, people?
And people is what we're going to talk about this week.
Yep, people are people.
We'll chat about the different kinds of people we've met, what it means to be a human being, and maybe what our recent political discourse and challenges have taught us about what it means to be a person.
Yippity-doo-dah.
Okay. So my world changed a little bit. A couple of things happened. I did the Erhard seminar training and got introduced to non-traditional philosophies, Eastern philosophies, meditation, a lot of the stuff that's mainstream now. Back in 1981, when I was 15 years old and took the EST training, that was atypical. This was, kind of unusual to learn about transcendental meditation and self-hypnosis and things like that.
Well, do you ever think that maybe those theories that entered your mind affected the offspring that you produced because it changed your mental DNA, so which would be one of the reasons why I'm so woke?
Could be. Although being woke and being enlightened are definitely not the same thing.
Or in tune with the truth of the universe. Is that better?
Yes. And then when I was 19, I traveled around Europe for 6 months and met people from all different countries.
Yeah.
And so I kind of got out of the Houston, Texas bubble. And my social circles in Houston were very diverse. So I had plenty of experience with people with, different melanin content in their skin and, different level socioeconomic statuses, and sexual orientation statuses, since my parents were so involved in the gay community in Houston. But when I got to, Finland and Denmark and Ireland and Greece and Spain and Italy, and I was meeting all these people, the people that lived there and the people that were also traveling at the same time, because young people from around the world do a lot more traveling than American young people tend to do. So I met Australians and I met, people from China, and
That's because their systems are set up to allow them to.
sure.
Like in Australia, you get like 4 months off a year,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that.
Right. The Calvinist work ethic has not been so instilled on other countries like it has been in the United States.
Yeah.
But that was when I was 19. So between taking this training when I was 15 and then, meeting people from all over the world when I was 19, I got a different perspective. What do you think were your kind of fundamental experiences that shaped how you think about people?
Well, if we start young, I went to like 6 different elementary schools.
That's true.
I was always the new kid in elementary school. And then in Virginia, that was just ridiculous. The proportion of minorities to white people in both my middle school and high school is insane. There was like 2 black people in my high school. But then I went to Chicago, for college. And I went to a very, very liberal college. I went to a liberal arts college. And I lived in 4 different neighborhoods in Chicago. And my social circle was immense, mainly because, I through parties, and I knew everybody, and I was entrenched in all the different departments, and just being in Chicago, and so that definitely shaped it. Um, and then moving to LA, it's the same thing, living in North Hollywood and Lake Balboa, and working all over, and shooting a hip hop dance movie, and you know Inglewood, and that's kind of helped shape how I was introduced to different people. Um, Also, I traveled the world with you when we went to Europe, and you took me to Switzerland when I was like 12, um, and going to Mexico, and I've seen a lot of the world too. Going to Taiwan for 2 weeks when I was in college.
Yep.
That was a completely different experience. That was insane. That was so much fun. That was so much fun. And it was just me and my friend, and his dad was from Taipei, and he moved to the United States when he was like 10 or 11. And he hadn't been back since like we went. And so that was pretty amazing. Um, yeah. And so I guess that kind of helped shape that. And then while I was in college, I really got into New Age thinking and reading books like The Power of Now and all that sort of jazz.
Great.
And I would, every night, especially when I was in college, I would listen to meditation and subliminal messaging and hypnosis. And that kind of, I think, helped open up my third eye. And then being in the EDM community and going to like EDC and Bass Canyon, and the EDM community is everybody. There's no two people in the EDM community who look the same, who dress the same. It's all about self-expression and being who you are and vibing with everybody else. And EDC especially, it's opening and welcoming, and being in those energy fields with 100,000 people who are all completely different, and meeting people on the bus to EDC and at EDC, and just it's that's the way the world should be. Everyone being open and accepting.
Yeah. And I think it's a paradox, because young people, I'm talking, from young adolescence through maybe, late 20s, early 30s, in that particular time in your life, you are very open to new ideas, other people's ideas, and still learning, essentially learning what it means to be a person in a society and on the earth. But that's also the time, unfortunately, that your animalistic reproductive urges are kicking in, right?
Well,
So I think those two things can get in the way, right? You can be attuned to the essence of another person, but if that person, has a knockout body and is wearing a bikini at a rave, you're thinking other thoughts.
No, you're not. So, I mean, there certainly are people who are. There certainly are people who are. I will not argue with that. But the vast majority of people don't go to raves to ogle girls. They go to raves to enjoy the music. You are so overwhelmed with everything that's going on that it's not a focal point.
So what's with the costumes?
That's about them being self-expressed, but them feeling good about themselves.
Okay.
It's about self-expression. It's not about, I mean, I'm sure there are girls and guys, there are skimpy guys wearing skimpy stuff at raves too.
Right.
That I'm sure that there are there are, especially people who go to their first couple raves that wear that for attention, but everyone's doing that. So it's not like you're special. You are special because you're being unique with your outfit, but you're not special because there's a million other people wearing skimpy stuff. Does that make sense? So it's not a focal point.
To the degree that, it is even unique. I mean, if everybody's wearing a bikini, then wearing a bikini doesn't make you unique, right?
Yeah.
So,
and it's not and literally you're here, like there's music like pounding into your brain like the entire time.
yeah.
So it's not, you can't focus on. And another thing is, a majority of people who are there are also like on drugs and stuff. So that's also taking them out of it,
Mm-hmm.
So it really is not, it's not like, it's not about sex. It really is not. It really is not.
So getting back to the drugs, I'm just trying to think about how would you increase the likelihood that somebody actually locks in and gets tuned in to the vibrations of the souls around them. And you said drugs. There are two different types of drugs. We could categorize drugs into two, and I'm sure there's more, but broadly, drugs that allow you to more easily tune into those energies. And I'm talking about
Weed and mushrooms?
no, not weed necessarily. I'm talking about psychedelics, so mushrooms, LSD, DMT, and I don't know if there's others, but
Well,
mescaline. I don't know. I don't know about drugs.
I think
enough to-
weed enhances music big time.
Well, but see, there's two different things there. So, drugs that they may enhance the experience of your physical senses, sight, smell, sound, hearing, but that's different than enhancing your spiritual senses.
Yeah.
So, speed and Molly and marijuana and cocaine or anything that.
See, I would not include marijuana with speed, Molly, and cocaine. That's opposite ends of the spectrum.
Well, it's opposite ends of the way that it affects your body spectrum. It's also, one is made by God and one's made by man. But I think, and maybe, I'm not a marijuana expert, but my sense from the few times that I have used marijuana is that it is less. It's more about physicality. It's more about the way it makes your body feel than unlocking your pineal gland.
You don't think it helps you tune in?
Not.
I mean, have you listened to any of all the jazz musicians who used to talk about how, and Bob Marley? I mean, it is a creative drug. If it is a drug at all.
But that's letting. I would say that's. Maybe it reduces your inhibitions so you let yourself out, but I don't think it enhances your ability to let other people in the way that DMT.
Then you haven't had a very long conversation on weed with someone else who's high.
But are you right?
I'm not arguing that it's not on the same level as DMT and mushrooms at all.
Right.
At all. But it's not. It's also not anything like speed and Molly and cocaine, which completely. Like that's pure physical.
Okay.
I would say weed is more middle ground.
Okay.
Than because,
Yeah. All right. So if you've got DMT in one end of the spectrum and you've got cocaine or meth on the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Marijuana is somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I do not understand how anyone would, and Taylor would not be happy with me saying this, but I do not understand how anyone would do LSD at a rave or why they would, or what benefit it would come from that. Because personally, and also drugs affect every single person differently.
Yeah.
So personally, LSD scares the shit out of me and I do not like it. And I've done it a couple times, and it was bad. And it was bad because it lasts for so long. And I do not like not being in control of myself and not knowing what's going on at all
Well,
times.
keep in mind, have you read Stephen Kotler's book?
No.
So,
Stealing fire?
yeah.
I have it. I just haven't. I haven't got. I've like, but that's microdosing too. That's
Well,
not.
it's still LSD, but
Yeah.
that's the point I was about to make was it's not only the drug, but how much of it you take.
Yeah, that's true.
And microdosing LSD, according to Stephen Kotler, is one of the reasons why we have half of the Silicon Valley inventions that we've come up with.
And that makes sense, I guess. But I've never
Also,
microdosed.
Burning Man, right? Isn't everybody at Burning Man essentially microdosing LSD the whole time?
Well, I don't think they're micro.
Right?
Yeah. That's another thing that I need to experience. I really want to go to Burning Man. I want to perform at Burning Man.
Do they do EDM DJs at
Yeah.
Burning Man?
Oh yeah, dude. Oh yeah. Burning Man has everything.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah, but you also have to get invited, or you have to be a part of a cart, or you have to like know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. It's like,
Or, yeah. So, any of our podcast fans who are connected to Burning Man, Chance the Closer is available.
I have tagged them in a story on Instagram, and the official account like looked at my story but didn't say anything. I was like, come on, I've got like 3 times more followers than you, but whatever. Yeah. Burning Man, I feel like, is just a whole other different world, because it's not just Burning Man is also a lot about art installations, and
Yep.
it's about everything.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a whole other thing. But
If you did Burning Man, you should, for your visualizer for your concert, you should feature your own artwork.
yeah,
Create visualizations out of some of your paintings and stuff.
yeah, like this one.
Yeah. So, okay. That's interesting. Now, we got kind of off the topic of,
People,
well, souls,
yeah,
essentially, human energy, where we come from, and how we discover, how we connect and acknowledge each other's spiritual energy. I mentioned meditation, self-hypnosis. What are your experiences with meditating?
It was really hard at first, like when I was in college, when I would try to meditate. Now it's relatively easy. It's easy for me to quiet my mind. The Joe Vitale, who's a self-help guy, he said that the easiest way to meditate, and it stuck with me, is to not necessarily picture nothing, because that's almost impossible. So you can't just picture the color white or whatever. So he said you picture a whiteboard, and you just focus on a whiteboard, and then eventually a marker will show up, and you can write on it, or you can just let the marker write and just be. It's all about just being in that moment, quieting your mind, and that's what really helped me. But subliminal hypnosis was also another thing that really kind of helped me get into that sphere and unlock those areas of my brain, I believe. And it got to the point where I would stack like 15 different subliminal hypnosis videos on YouTube and listen to them all at the same time, so that I couldn't even really focus on what was going on. And then even mixed in there, I would add like T.I.'s You Can Have Whatever You Like and Nickelback's Rockstar to insert those into my subconscious.
Okay.
Which I think is another reason why things are starting to work out the way that it's working out now. Is because way back then,
You tricked your own self-conscious?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. I mean, it may work. It seems like that's that's kind of like trying to fix sophisticated electronics with a hammer.
Well, I mean, I would layer it. So there's like the Sophago or whatever, golden frequency on top, and then there would be subliminal hypnosis for wealth, and then I would literally listen to 15 stacked
Yeah, not sequentially at the same
time. Yeah. And it just created this kind of like
cacophony.
Well, not it all canceled each other. A lot of it just canceled each other out. So it was, and so a lot of the times I would also like do the Tibetan bowls, and have those higher than everything else. So that's what my...
And all of this while you were trying to go to sleep?
That's how I used to fall asleep when I was in Chicago, when I was in college.
Oh, jeez.
It's the only thing that would make my mind shut up. Because my mind is also running at 9 million miles an hour no matter what, 24 hours a day. So it's really hard for me to go to sleep in general. And it's been that way for a long time. And it's probably because I have ADHD, but I never got diagnosed. But I don't care because it works in my favor.
Okay. So have you ever done self-hypnosis?
Yeah.
And you can't quiet your mind with self-hypnosis techniques?
If I really, really, really focus. But I guess listening to those is kind of like a cheat code or whatever. But I can quiet my mind, especially another time that my mind is kind of quieted is when I'm doing like manual labor and stuff.
Yep.
That's kind of like when we have to do the goat shit, and I hate that, but my mind turns to blank.
Okay.
Or when I'm hauling the hay and stuff around, there's nothing going on up there.
Okay.
You know. Also when I'm playing with the dogs, but it's not like my internal monologue is turned off when I'm like playing with the dogs and doing other stuff because I'm just focused on them.
Well, that is the only time you're actually in the now.
And when I'm listening to music, like when I'm listening to when I'm making and listening to music, there's nothing's going on up there. It's just a receiver.
Right.
It's not transmitting. It's just receiving.
Yeah. The voice in your head is the enemy of the now.
Yeah. But I've also had an ego death through an intense mushroom trip. So the other thing that happens is when that voice in my head starts saying negative stuff, like I recognize it instantly and I know how to subvert it. And usually I'll knock on wood and that also helps.
Okay.
That's my tie to the physical world. Like, nope, not thinking about that. And it's not just when I say things out loud. I know when I'm talking to you guys and Mom, like when you guys say bad stuff and I'm like, it's not happening, I knock on wood. That also happens. But it also just happens if a bad thought pops into my head and I'm near a piece of wood. I'll knock on wood.
Okay.
And it's not paranoia. It's just I don't want to enter that fractal universe that is created from that bad thought.
Okay. I'm not sure what the wood has to do with anything, but just because the expression knock on wood, is that why you do it?
No, I mean, the expression came from somewhere. It probably came from ancient man. So it's probably something that has been around and it's just like my tie to the physical.
Interesting.
So that's another like physical way that I enter a better universe than the one that I was previously in.
Okay. Interesting. Do you watch the primitive survival skills videos on YouTube? The guys like the Indonesian
That build stuff
guys?
in the middle of this, yes. Usually at like 3:00 in the morning.
Yeah. I mean, if you watch enough of them, you figure out that they're staged. They're not, it's not like Survivor Man or something out there. I think the one guy who started it, the Australian, or I guess he's Australian.
You're talking about the Aborigines people or not the Aborigines people, but the like people who look like they're in the middle of the Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those are staged?
Yeah.
That's like on a sound. That's not like on a sound stage.
No, they're out in the forest, but I mean, they're not like Aboriginal people.
Well, yeah, because they had to figure out. I mean, I don't know, but it's not like they're in Pasadena or anything. They're like,
well, they might be outside of Singapore or something. They're probably not far from a big city.
yeah.
And just go out into the woods and pretend to be.
Well, also like the camera, like
Exactly.
like how they plugging that in,
Yeah.
and how they uploading it to the internet.
Yep.
Like it can't be completely primitive.
Yeah.
You can go on Fiverr and have like they're on Fiverr. There's like primitive people who will like write a note like with your name on it and like shimmy it up a banana tree and like put it up on top of a banana tree and weird stuff like that for like $5.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway, just the idea of watching those makes me think about what it may have been like to be a person, a human being, before the modern world we live in.
Yeah.
Like, I know they obviously they aren't, but but it's kind of interesting to think about when that might have been. I know that the timeline for human evolution on the planet is very much in question, and the things that they're probably still teaching in elementary school are clearly wrong. They haven't updated the textbooks with the new evidence, but the deeper the archaeologists dig, the more evidence they find that keeps pushing our timeline back.
Yeah. By tens of thousands of
Or
years.
millions of years.
Yeah.
So, well,
how old is the Earth? It's like 3 billion years old. 4 billion years old.
Yeah.
And a billion is 1,000 million.
Correct.
And how far back have we gone?
There's some evidence. They found those spheres that they dated to 1 billion years old.
Yeah. We don't know anything. I mean, there could have been a cycle. There could have been a full cycle before the dinosaurs that were humanoids.
Yep.
Before the dinosaurs.
So there could have been a whole evolution of human beings
or humanoids,
or that either evolved here or were deposited here.
Yeah.
And then there was a catastrophe, a big asteroid blew everything up.
And then the
dinosaurs evolved. Yeah, we could have been through multiple cycles.
Yeah. That's probably more likely, I think. If the Earth is 4 billion years old.
So I guess one question for a geologist is, how long does it take?
But we also might not be able to find that out.
No, there probably are ways. If they can find planets out there in the cosmos that are, in the M range or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
The
Goldilocks zone.
The Goldilocks zone.
Yeah.
That they might find examples of planets that they could date the planet or the star system, because I think there's ways to figure out how old a star is based on the way the light is emitted and size and everything. So you could see, how long does it take a planet in the Goldilocks zone to go from, molten rock at the earliest stages of formation to a point where it's got an atmosphere and water on the surface.
Yeah.
If that takes 3 billion years just to go from molten rock to able to sustain life, then there's some question about, is the billion-year-old sphere that was found, could there have been an advanced civilization by that time? If it only takes 1 billion years to go from molten lava to, atmosphere and water on the surface, then there probably was multiple cycles before that.
Is Mars in the Goldilocks zone?
I don't know. It doesn't have an atmosphere anymore.
Yeah, but at one point it did. They know that it did.
Yeah.
There's frozen water on the caps, so they know that at one point.
Yep.
There was flowing water. Also, there was it Europa? Is the frozen moon of Jupiter that they believe there probably is life underneath the ice sheet?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's ice. It's water ice. So there could be like mermaids on Europa.
There could be. It's pretty cold.
Not close to the core, though. If it has a core, if there's an ice sheet and there's a core and there's liquid water, then it can't be too cold. Like, it's not. There's
a zone where
there's got to be like and there could be a whole like aquatic civilization in there.
Yeah, like that one from Star Wars.
Yeah.
Of course, they wouldn't be And they wouldn't be amphibious like what was the Star Wars character that got George Lucas,
Mon Calamari. Oh,
the one that got George Lucas in trouble?
wasn't that the Mon Calamari?
I was thinking of the specific character. I can't remember his name.
The Mr. Trap. That guy.
Yeah.
Mr. Trap.
No, the one who they said was speaking with a stereotypical
Oh, Jar Jar Binks.
Jar Jar Binks. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they lived underwater.
Yeah. And on land,
Yeah.
which the Europans wouldn't.
Yeah. The Europans. That sounds like a Netflix series.
Yeah. That'd be interesting.
Netflix, if you want, I'll write it.
The Europans. The mermaids who live on Europa.
Yeah, dude.
A soap opera about mermaids.
Yeah.
God. That's funny. Okay, so we've discussed being a person. Now we're kind of moving into the area of specifying a person as a Homo sapien.
Yeah.
But what about the other thing that is interesting? You know that in 2005, I think, if you remember this, when we were in Afghanistan, the military had a run-in with a giant. Do you remember that news story?
No, but I've watched Ancient Aliens enough that said there were giants.
Well, the freaking New York Times says there were giants. If you go back,
Did they run into like a living giant,
yes,
or did they run into?
It killed an American soldier. They found evidence after they killed it because it came running out of its cave and on a platoon of soldiers, and they shot it dead. But it killed one of the soldiers with a spear before they could kill it. And then when they went in and investigated the cave, they found a bunch of the bones of the platoon they were looking for. So it had actually attacked and eaten American soldiers. And then the rescue squad that went to look for the lost platoon came across the giant and it tried to kill them.
How big of a? Well, they found
14 feet.
Yeah, they have found skeletal remains of giants before, haven't they?
Oh, yeah.
Like
That's
all
what I
over
was
the
going to
place.
say.
Yeah.
The newspapers, up until 1903, 1904, every week there was a newspaper story about another giant skeleton found somewhere in the United States.
Yeah.
Like thousands of them. So there were clearly giants.
Why is the government hiding that?
It's not that they're hiding it, they're just not talking about it. I mean, the Smithsonian to some degree is hiding it because they accumulated a lot of the skeletal remains that were unearthed by archaeologists, and they won't put them on display.
Why? Because it's against their narrative?
Well, I don't know. What is the narrative? Their narrative that about evolution, or that the Bible's made up and all the story of the Nephilim and everything is just gobbledygook. That, I guess that's the only thing that they may be scared about, is it doesn't support the simple evolutionary story.
Yeah. One also those Easter Island heads, like how did they get there? And those were supposed to be like they're the people who lived in those areas of where the Easter Island is. Their ancestors were supposed to be giants or something. There's something about giants in there.
No, I don't know.
In their belief system that Easter Island was once inhabited by giants.
The other thing that is clear from most of the archaeological and art evidence is that there were taller people that had elongated skulls as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of the giants had elongated skulls, like the pictures you see from Sumeria of the Anunnaki.
Yep. Well, the giant. Also, there's this story that the giants may have been a hybrid that they created. That they were one of the hybrid children. They were the first generation of hybrids or something like that.
Yeah. Although the it couldn't have been just the first generation because you know who Magellan is, the first guy who
Yeah.
sailed around the world. The person who was recording the journey, kind of the scribe of their voyage, wrote about them encountering a giant in at the tip of South America when they were going around South America. It was wintertime. They had to go into a port and like hang out for a couple of months while the ice cleared so they could finish their journey. And they ran into a giant.
Yeah.
And that was 1500, so that wasn't that long ago.
Yeah. It's well, and also, I mean, all of the, I mean, the ancient Greeks have stories of giants.
Yeah.
The Bible, David versus Goliath. I mean, like, we don't know what's going on, man. I know you're
Well,
saying
no, but
that.
that's the issue is we do know what's going on. There's all kinds of archaeological evidence. The one thing that the internet sort of allowed is for the people to go around the controlled narrative of the mainstream media
Yeah.
and go directly to people with the evidence. Like, it's not hard to go look in the archives of the New York Times
Yeah.
and pull up the newspaper stories, and you can see that they were very regular up until 1902, 1903, and then it just stopped.
Why?
That's a good question. Maybe instead of the 1619 project, they ought to have a little self inspection about their own history and see what the New York Times and mainstream media was doing around 1903 and why they stopped covering what was actually going on. It's been over 100 years since you could trust the New York Times.
Okay.
So anyway, there are obviously the giants were conscious. They may, from some of the reports about their behavior, they may not have been loving and peaceful and sophisticated, but they were certainly conscious.
Well, if they weren't in the majority, if they were treated as an outcast from the get-go, like that,
Maybe. Yeah.
that could have less to do with their biological abilities and more to do with their situation.
Now, there's a lot of stories about Native American tribes where the chief was the giant.
Yeah.
So, but those tribes that made the giants chiefs were typically tribes that were aggressive and warred with their neighbors.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, if you reward somebody for their physical prowess rather than their mental, intellectual, or spiritual prowess, then that obviously demonstrates the priorities of your community.
Yeah. I think giants are probably real. I mean, 14 feet tall.
Yeah. Which is not
That's
big.
like, well,
For some of the giant skeletons.
twice as tall as me plus 2 feet.
Oh, yeah. But, I mean, in terms of giants,
Yeah.
that's not that big. They found a crypt in somewhere around Greece. I can't remember exactly where it was. I think on the mainland, I believe, somewhere around Greece. And this crypt was 30 feet long. And the sarcophagus that they found in it was 24 feet long. And the shoulders of the skeleton were 5 feet across the shoulder.
Jesus.
And the skeleton itself, from tip of the head to tip of the toe, was 24 feet.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's insane. That's another species.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's not
Like
just
no human woman.
No,
that-
it's not.
the
It's not
ba-
gigantism or
Yeah,
something.
no human woman could give birth to that.
No. I mean,
Even in a fetus, the fetus would be as big as her.
yeah. No, it's definitely another species,
Yeah,
not Homo sapien sapien.
yeah,
And while there are genetic conditions that create gigantism in humans.
Yeah.
They don't typically grow to 24 feet, obviously.
And the,
But that's very rare. So whenever you come across an island or a tribe or something where everybody's at least 7 feet tall and the tallest people are 14, that's obviously a not a Homo sapien sapien. That is a different.
well, there's also, and there's it's also the other way. There's the story in the mountains. Is it the mountains of Tibet about there was a crashed. There's a story about this tribe of people in the mountains in Asia and their origins, their like origin story of this tribe, who are everyone in the tribe is like under 4 feet.
Mm-hmm.
The origin story of them is that their ancestors crash landed on this planet.
Oh,
Yeah.
did they do they?
And they've done DNA tests, and they contain the people now do contain DNA of human, but they also contain
Something else.
something that they can't within the DNA that they can't, that isn't terrestrial, isn't from Earth.
Isn't one of the phenotypes.
Yeah.
Well, they've discovered that is, I think, how they've started to figure out the phenotype tracking is how they figured out some of the migration models and the presence of Dionysian DNA.
Yeah.
So, yeah, some weird stuff.
Yeah. And we're part Neanderthal. We're not just Homo sapiens sapiens. I've got like 270 Neanderthal points
Okay.
in my DNA.
That's pretty typical. I think that's not that unusual. Now, what's really interesting is that while Neanderthals and Homo sapiens and sapiens can and did interbreed, they aren't now. The new evidence is they were not part of the same evolutionary track.
Yeah.
That Homo sapiens sapiens evolved. Actually, what do they call them now? They call them like physically modern humans or something. I can't remember what they changed the designation for some reason, and I can't even remember why. But
Well, Neanderthal could have been the natural progression of our species, and Homo sapiens could have been the altered progression
that's
from
true.
from
Right.
the aliens or whatever.
The genetic modification that occurred.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that would actually make.
Now, I know that comparing human genetics to chimpanzee genetics, they found the fused chromosome that looks like it was scientifically altered
Yeah.
to change chimps to humans. Do Neanderthals have that same thing?
I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know that.
It's interesting.
But that could have been. They also could have been just an offshoot. Like the aliens could have messed up or whatever.
Failed experiment.
Yeah.
Or actually not necessarily failed, because in a lot of ways they were superior.
Well, they were stronger,
Had bigger brain cavities.
but do we know if they were smarter? Does larger brain equate?
No, not necessarily.
Like they could have had a bigger computer, but it could have done less, like the computers from the 70s.
Yeah.
You know, like my phone can do more than a computer that fit a whole room.
Yeah. That's true.
So, but they definitely were stronger.
Yep. More durable. They could live in colder temperatures.
Yeah.
They were probably harder to manipulate. Obviously, clearly harder to manipulate physically, but they might also have been harder to manipulate intellectually.
Yeah.
So if the story about the alien genetic alteration to create gold miners, Enki, right? Or was it Enlil who did it? I think it was Enlil who actually was the genetic scientist and Enki was the one who stuck up for the humans after they had been created. So, yeah. Enlil is the one who was the female geneticist who created humans. It's weird to think about. I mean, she didn't create our souls. She just created the bodies that we choose to inhabit. And inhibit. Freudian slip there. Yeah. Anyway. But so we are not arguing about the separation between the spirit and the body. What about the brain versus the mind?
The brain versus the mind?
Yes.
So the physical gray matter that's in my head versus who I am,
Okay.
right? Is
Well,
that what you're trying to say?
I'm asking what you think about that separation, and do you equate who you are with the mind? I mean, presumably you're saying your brain is just the gray matter, right? Is that the word you're assigning to that?
Yeah.
Okay. So, and then with mind, you said who you are.
Yeah.
Then what's your soul?
Well, they have found, neurotransmitters in the heart, right?
Okay.
They discovered that. They discovered that.
Okay.
I don't know. I know that I am eternal, and I know that this body isn't.
Okay. That's pretty straightforward.
And I know that I shape my future through my thought. Like the brain, if the brain is a computer, the mind and soul are software.
Then are mind and soul different? And how so? If so, how so?
That's a tough one. Because I don't think that soul can inhibit or express emotions. Like I don't think a soul can be angry.
Okay.
But I know that a brain can. Like I know that I can get angry and be fearful, but my soul can't. My soul can only experience love, light, and joy. So I think that's the separation. That the soul does not control emotions, but can help shape your emotions, but it does not control your emotions versus your mind.
Okay. You said brain before, but you meant mind.
Yeah, mind.
Okay. That makes sense.
What do you think?
Well, we've talked about souls in the past, and I think there is a collective. So the soul is a part of a broader,
that giant thing that's got a bunch of fingertips on it, or whatever you were saying.
Yeah. So that giant energy that is the universal consciousness. That's, I guess, the best way to describe it. That is always on. Okay. Broadcasting 24/7. And the mind is the receiver.
Okay.
Which kind of gets between, or maybe even what holds the soul in the body.
Okay.
The brain, like you said, is just a physical organ that has a lot of, concentration of neurons and things. And so
okay, so if you're equating it to a computer, the brain is
hardware.
The brain is like the computer itself. The soul is like the cloud, or like the internet.
The universal consciousness is the cloud.
Yeah. And
the soul would be the operating system on the specific computer.
Well, then what would be the mind? Wouldn't that be the mind?
Oh, maybe. Let's see. Um, it's probably like a hybrid between
Like, if is the soul the web browser, and the mind is the mind the specific site?
no, actually I'd say the mind is the browser. So if the universal consciousness is the cloud,
Uh huh.
the mind is the browser,
Okay.
and the soul is the what is the soul?
The person controlling the computer,
Um
the user.
yeah, maybe the user. But to your earlier point, I think the soul is primarily just joy and love, and there's not that much differentiation. I think the whole reason souls decide to incarnate is so that they can experience something other than just
Yeah,
pure spiritual
because it's
love.
boring.
Boring, yeah.
Not that it's boring, not that like love and joy. That's like ultimate, but like you can have too much ice cream or whatever you
Right,
enjoy.
right.
I don't like ice cream, so I don't do dairy, but you can have whatever you enjoy. But you can have there's too much of it. You can always have too much, even too much love. Because there's no way to differentiate it. There's no way, like, there can't be light without dark.
Right.
There just can't.
Yeah.
Because then you wouldn't know what the hell light is. You just be like, this is everything.
Yeah. You just described the plot to My Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Can't have too much love without heartbreak.
Yeah. That TV show that's got like musical.
Yeah.
And then I only watched a couple episodes, but I know what you're talking about.
Um,
Yeah. And you can't grow without heartbreak.
mm-hmm.
You can't grow without strife. You can't grow without obstacles.
Right. And if somebody said that a soul is consciousness trying to experience itself,
Yeah.
so that's essentially what you're saying, is that you've incarnated to come experience things other than just that warm glow of love and joy.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, technically, we're getting into some of the nuts and bolts of what it means to be a person. Now, do you think that applies beyond bipedal hominids?
Like, do I think that animals have souls?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you talking about like aliens?
Both.
I think both.
Okay.
I think that I think that ants have souls, and I think that you climb the ladder. I think that's where it starts. Or even the microorganisms that are on my face. I think that's where it starts.
Okay.
And you grow, like, you move up the ladder.
Mm-hmm.
So there are probably aliens, like in my next lifetime or in 10 lifetimes from now or whatever. I'll be an alien that is born more in tune with everything.
Mm-hmm.
Because, or maybe this is the one that maybe the not being in tune is why we chose this particular life. Because one of the things that
So the
Bashar,
microorganisms might have it more put together than we do.
yeah, one of the things, it's because of the difficulties that they face or don't have to face, and like one of the things that Bashar said, who's a channeler, is that souls choose to come to Earth because it's hard.
Right. Yeah.
Like, you could be there, and he's like, there are planets where you just live in the lap of luxury from day one to the day you die for thousands of years. Versus Earth, where the lifespan is, he said the lifespan on Earth, even the people who live for a really long time, is really, really short.
Yeah.
Comparatively.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, if you think about it in terms of soul perspective,
Yeah.
a human lifetime on Earth is like a visit to the gym.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're getting your workout in.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And the same, and like I said before, is like I think that you can also decide once you reach a certain level, like once you reach a certain soul level, I think you can go up and down the ladder as much as you like. So like in the next life, if I'm like, you know what, I just want to chill and be a cat for like, 10 years.
5 minutes.
Yeah. From their perspective, it's like 5 minutes, but like a lifetime, And so that's why I do think that there are some animals that you look at and you're like,
Something's going on.
someone's in there, So I think that,
like a blue whale.
yeah,
Look in the eyeball of a whale.
yeah, they might be higher. I think they might be higher than us they might be higher versus lower than us because, they could have whole other worlds inside their brains communicating with each other.
Oh, okay. So there might be like whales on other planets.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean? Interesting. Yeah, it's possible.
Could be on Europa. It's a giant ocean planet.
Oh, that's true.
I
guess. Yeah. So you know about the experiment where there was collective meditation that influenced random number generators on the other side of the Earth. You heard about that?
No, but I believe it.
Yeah. So the experiment was set up to find out if there was whatever psychic energy or something, some collective way of manipulating space and time and reality. And they did this. They repeated this experiment several times, and it always happened that they could, I think they had between. At one point, they may have had as many as 1,200 people meditating, but I think it was as low as like 100.
Yeah.
Where they had these, random number generators running, just creating a pattern of numbers, and they had the meditators try and influence the numbers in one direction, either higher or lower, positive or negative number.
Yeah.
And it happened every time. They could they could generate a pattern where the numbers were either higher or lower in the random number generators.
Yeah. It makes complete sense.
So you would think that with the scientific evidence, also remote viewing.
Yeah.
I mean, if you research remote viewing, that's some crazy stuff, right?
Yeah.
So that's also statistically valid, clear evidence that, there is something beyond our physical reality. And I guess it may even be physical. And we'll talk about this. We're getting close to an hour, so we can talk about this in the next episode. But, energy, electricity specifically, magnetism, gravity, these things are, they operate in the quantum field. Now, that is physical. But the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, the fact that thoughts are a form of energy that interacts in the quantum field
that we can measure,
that's measurable.
Yeah.
So when I say beyond the physical, I should say beyond the macroscopic, I guess.
Yeah.
Because those things, being able for 100 people meditating to influence a random number generator on the other side of the planet is physical. Yeah. It's just operating in a field that we don't typically think about, but it is there.
That makes me think about like if humans progress to the point where everyone understands and knows this and are more in tune with the universe, that if there was like 500 years from now, but everyone understands and knows how to influence the world, and come together, and there was like a comet heading towards Earth.
You mean the one that's headed towards us in 2139?
Okay, 2139?
Yes.
Okay, so hopefully by then we will have enough people that can connect and move that comet just with sheer focus and concentration on our thoughts.
Yep.
Right? That should be the ability that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Especially,
We should actually start on that, like today,
I'm starting to move the comet already.
because it's gonna have one more rotation. Make sure you move it the right way, because it passed between the Earth and Moon. Last time passed, right? But it was close, and it's the projections of the astronomers is that the next pass will be closer to the Earth, and then the one that comes around in 2039 would hit us.
2039 or 21?
2139. Sorry.
Dude, okay. You scared me. If it was 2039, we would really have to get on this ball, but we should get on the ball now. But like 2139. How old would I be? 160? Something like that.
Well, if your pill comes along,
Yeah, I'll still be here. If I make it to 2050 and I get reverted back to 29.
you'll be here to see when the asteroid hits the planet.
It won't, because I'll be one of the
Hopefully.
shapers of the future by then.
I hope. All right. So this week, we are going to play a new song that you came up with,
Yep.
particularly having to do with Doge.
Yeah.
You want to explain
Speaking
what Doge
about
is?
creating the future.
Yeah.
Doge is a cryptocurrency that is hopefully going to explode,
Okay.
and hopefully become a gamer token.
Okay. So that's what Elon Musk was tweeting about.
Yes, and I have 4,000 of them.
Okay. You didn't need to share that, but okay.
I don't. It was like $100 for like 4,000 of them. They're 0.04 cents right now.
Okay.
And I'm holding on to those puppies. I'm holding on to
You're
them.
holding the line on Doge.
I will hold the line on Doge until it's like $5 or $10, so that I can actually. If it is 100, I'm gonna be super happy.
Yeah.
But it's at 4 cents right now. But hopefully I'll be dripping. It's dripping on Doge. Hopefully I'll be dripping on Doge.
All right. See you next week.
Adios.
We flexing, yeah. Business is business, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Business is business. Ooh, uh-huh. Yeah. Whoa. Dripping on the south, dripping on the
What you gonna do about it?
uh-huh. Yeah. Whoa. Dripping on the south, dripping on the
Drip, drip, dripping. What you gonna do about it?
Drip, drip, dripping. You ain't bought this.